For decades, a daily glass of red wine was a standard recommendation for long-term health, but recently that conventional wisdom has collided with scientific scrutiny. The belief in wine's medical benefits stems largely from the French paradox. This was an epidemiological observation from the 1990s. This noted that French populations had relatively low rates of cardiovascular disease, despite eating diets heavily loaded with saturated fats. This idea became so ingrained that the famous Mediterranean diet, widely considered one of the healthiest eating patterns in the world, actually boosts your official dietary adherence score if you consume up to 7 glasses of wine a week with your meals. Because of this, entire generations of adults have essentially been prescribed a daily drink by their doctors in the name of heart health. But that dietary guidance is now clashing with a much darker biological reality. The World Health Organization officially classifies alcohol, including wine, as a Group 1 carcinogen. A Group 1 carcinogen is a scientific classification given to agents where there is sufficient definitive evidence that they cause cancer in humans. Globally, alcohol is responsible for roughly 2.4 million deaths in a single year. To put that severity into perspective, ethanol sits in the exact same risk category as asbestos, tobacco smoke, and ionizing radiation. How can a recognized deadly carcinogen simultaneously be the absolute cornerstone of the world's most doctor-recommended longevity diet? To solve this paradox, researchers have shifted away from broad population studies and turned to multi-omics laboratory research. Multi-omics is a method of biological analysis that looks at several systems, like genes and proteins, simultaneously to see how they interact with a substance. They found that wine is a complex chemical matrix. If you conceptually strip away the water and the alcohol, you are left with the beverage's dark matter, polyphenols. Polyphenols are a category of naturally occurring plant compounds packed with antioxidant properties. The most prominent of these compounds is resveratrol. This specific chemical is derived entirely from the skins and seeds of the grapes themselves, meaning its presence has nothing to do with the fermentation process that creates alcohol. Resveratrol's primary cardiovascular mechanism increases plasma nitric oxide, physically expanding blood vessels to lower blood pressure, a process called flow-mediated dilation. Simultaneously, in the gut, these polyphenols act as prebiotics, feeding beneficial bacteria like Akkermansia muciniphila. These microbes degrade mucin to produce fatty acids, reinforcing the intestinal barrier and regulating your immune system. These grape-derived chemical compounds are the true source of the cardiovascular and gastrointestinal protection observed in the French paradox. But those compounds share the glass with ethanol, the intoxicating active ingredient that causes multi-organ damage. While resveratrol successfully protects cells in a controlled, isolated petri dish, it has to constantly compete with the systemic damage of ethanol as it metabolizes inside the human body. This cost-benefit ratio is stark. For every single cancer case resveratrol might prevent, the ethanol in that exact same wine definitively causes 100,000 cancer cases. Down in the gut, ethanol physically degrades the mucosal layer, increasing intestinal permeability and directly eroding the exact defenses polyphenols attempt to reinforce. The health benefits of wine are locked in a constant, ultimately losing battle against the cellular toxicity of alcohol. The data points to a single distinction. The grapes are beneficial, but the alcohol is harmful. To exploit this biological loophole, the beverage industry has developed de-alcoholized wine, a functional food innovation designed to deliver the benefits without the alcohol. Manufacturers use standard fermentation to create the wine, then apply advanced extraction techniques like reverse osmosis or vacuum distillation. Reverse osmosis is a filtration process that uses pressure to force liquid through a microscopic membrane, stripping out the ethanol while leaving the larger resveratrol and tannin molecules intact. Clinical trials confirm that non-alcoholic red wine maintains the exact same blood pressure reductions and endothelial benefits as standard wine, relying entirely on the preserved polyphenol content. It also offers secondary metabolic benefits. Without the ethanol, a glass of de-alcoholized wine contains fewer than 9 calories and under 2 grams of carbohydrates, compared to roughly 125 calories in a standard pour. Removing the ethanol completely eliminates the Group 1 carcinogen risk from the equation. Science has finally solved the French paradox. You can keep the heart health, the gut reinforcement, and the Mediterranean diet, You just have to drop the ethanol.